Hey, what's up? klbasey here with another exciting video tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about a effect where we replace or add to a crowd at a stadium, like a football game, and we add in fireworks and a jet flyover. To be quite honest with you, this isn't really going to be much of a tutorial as much as it is going to be an explanation of how I went about doing everything that I did, because this took me, like, literally, it probably took me like 3 solid days, like, you know, just of going at it to get everything to where it needed to be. It was a commercial that I was working on for a professor I had in college, and he wanted me to do a one shot for this commercial that they're doing for IU football, and not that many people attend these IU football games, so he just wanted me to spruce up the shot a little, so that's what I did. I did run into some problems, so you know, by just going through these things and then telling you guys about what I ran into and what I did, maybe that will help you out. So let's get started here. I did have one request from another viewer of one of my tutorials. They wanted me to do a Agent Smith impression, so here it goes. Mr. Anderson, it seems that you're a virus. The human race is a virus spreading across the land, and we are here to stop you. Now, with that being said, the problems. The first problem I had was that the codec file was in a MPEG-2 format that my computer wasn't reading. So I had to install Final Cut, and then it would, the codec was in the Final Cut package. This is Final Cut Pro 7, and so I was able to go into Final Cut and use the export to QuickTime movie function in Final Cut to export the files that I was given to animation codec, so my client wouldn't have to resend those files over the internet, which kind of takes long because I live in a rural area and our internet sucks out here. So then after that, in Buju, the footage, well, it was interlaced to start out with, and I didn't de-interlace it. I guess you can use like a program, I think Revision Effects or whatever has a fills or defills kit you can use to take out the interlacing, but I didn't do that, and I was in Buju. I was trying to go through my settings to get, like, you know, everything looking right, and I had to experiment with some stuff. But anyways, what I found out was that you had to set it to lower fills only, and after I did that, everything started to work out great. Right now I'm just going to open up that Buju file for reference. I also had problems with the crowd. What I did was I initially started out, I thought, oh, I'll just use draw mask around the crowd, and I'll, you know, have the moving crowd, and you know, I'll take that Buju tracking information, everything will stay put, and you know, everything will be hunky-dory. That didn't happen. And part of it was because that first track I did in Buju wasn't that great. And another bit, the biggest factor was that I think you have to reverse track this stuff to where it's, you know, it's stable and still, or you have to use like green screen or still image where the camera's locked off. So what I did was I basically took just still frames using the freeze frame or, you know, the time remapping thing in After Effects and freeze frame it. And so yeah, when I did that and then parented it to the nulls, or copied and pasted the position data like I did in my other tutorial,
where I show you how to get that tracking information from Bujo into After Effects. Everything worked out great then. Yeah, then the foreground matte. I mean, there's really no great way of going about this. Every frame in this whole like 10 seconds that I did, I had to go through manually and use, if you're working in CS5 I believe and above, they have the roto brush tool, which before now I really haven't had that much luck with, but I used it in this project and it worked out great for my purposes because you really can't, I mean, it would take forever to draw masks around every, you know, animate it through every frame around every little piece in this footage. But if I had to do it over again, as you can see, we have this like band line behind these cheerleaders that are going through. If I did it over again, I'd like draw one mask around the band line, and then as like, you know, since they're not moving, and then I'd go back and then roto out the cheerleaders, so everything, you know, I wasn't having to roto out the band as I'm going along too. And one thing that really helps to pull these mattes off is the use of a refine matte effect. It just helps to sort of feather and smooth the edges of the mattes to make them blend better. But you can get too carried away with this. Okay, let me just take a snapshot of this to show you what it looks like without the refine matte. And to take a snapshot, you like press Shift and F5, F6 or F7 or F8, I think. It goes up to F8, and that saves a snapshot of like what your screen looks like into your cache or catch, whatever you want to call it. But okay, this is without a refine matte. That's with it, so it kind of helps to blend that in. But you can go too far. As I have written down here, I went ahead and added an extra refine matte to show that you can get way too carried away with this to where it looks terrible, like that. Here's one refine matte, two, none. I mean, this doesn't look too bad here. Let me go move somewhere to where we can like really see the details. But one refine matte's point I wanted to try to make is one refine matte's plenty. Now it should, if I enable this, let me go ahead and make a snapshot of what this looks like. And if I turn that back on, you'll see that this looks a whole lot better. Or I'm just going to eat my words. Okay, yeah, you can see here that looks much better and more realistic. Also, I was having some Z-space issues. Like these nulls, they're great. Like this scene didn't have like much depth data, since like, you know, we're in this huge stadium and we had like the entire foreground that was on like ground level moving, and then everything that was not moving was like, you know, above it. So there really was no Z-space cues, but the X and Y data, you know, that's still useful. But the positioning of these nulls in Z-space would like throw the things that you parent it to, like it would come before the 2D matte that is our like cheerleaders. So you got to be careful when you're doing that, and maybe like reposition the layers or whatever to or draw masks around them so that you know, they're not clipping over this foreground matte. Let me go ahead and I'll just find where I had that problem at. Yeah, right here. It was, if you can see here, yeah, see right there, it came over, and it's because if you look here at our position data, the Z space is -5, So it's before that 2D matte. I'll just go ahead and Control Z out of that. Save. So there was the Z space issue, and then I was also having, I downloaded the RSMB Pro and Regular. That's the Real Smart Motion Blur plugin for After Effects. It's like the latest one, version 4.0 or something. I applied that to my 3D jets that I rendered out. Right here. I applied the Real Smart Motion Blur to the 3D jets, and I had Real Smart Motion Blur Pro originally, but that was giving me a orange X like during one frame in the entire clip, and I had to like re-render, and the renders for this like were 2 hours long, and I wanted to render it out as the final format that my client was going to be used to edit with, and I didn't want to make just a sequence, and I really didn't want just to send one frame. I wanted it all to be in one package. So I took off the Pro version and added just the regular version, and that did the trick. I don't know what the deal was, but I guess like the only time you really need the Pro version of RSMB is if you're like using the vector. If you render out a vector layer from like Cinema 4D or what have you, it uses like the greens and the reds to find the motion blur. Yeah, just in general, this thing was tough for like tracking and rotoing out because of like all the moving elements in this, like the light and smoke that comes up here with these fireworks, and then people running everywhere. So there was like really no way to track it in After Effects. I tried, because I was getting frustrated with the Buju track. I tried tracking in After Effects, and it was god awful. So moving along, I'll just kind of talk you through step by step of what I did. So the first thing I did was to get this footage into Buju right. They say that you want to convert it to a even frame rate, so for like 29.97 like this is, goes up to 30. For like, film, you want to get it to 24 frames from 23.976. So I had to, somewhere in here I just basically took the raw footage that I transcoded in Final Cut, and then I took it in here, rendered it out as a 30 frames per second PNG sequence, rendered it out as a PNG sequence, and then took it into Buju and tracked it there. In Buju, let me go to my camera settings here. That's not it. Task view, cameras. Yeah, I made this a nodal pan because the camera really isn't moving in Z space, and so like that would throw everything on like a in After Effects. What it does is it kind of looks like just like a sphere, kind of like the inside, like you're on the inside of a sphere, and it's throwing these things up on the sphere where the points are. So just keep that in mind. If if this cameraman would like walk or something forward or backs, then it would be a free move, but since this is in one place, he really wasn't panning, but it's not a free move really. And then you can see here that I'm using lower fields for this since it was interlaced. And for this I also used a whole bunch of masks. This is like right at the start. We can see here that this is anticipating the flag guy. Then I masked out the flags that are going on the right and left, and all that light. Oh, you should note here that like, this is very contrasty. What I did was I actually rendered out, the first time I didn't up the contrast, but what you can do, like I explained this in one of the videos I did on tracking in Buju, is that you can up the contrast to sort of pre-treat your footage so it'll track better, so it has more like contrast and the computer recognizes it in the algorithm more. And even though that we made this a nodal pan in the export type, it's still going to be a moving camera static scene, because you know, you're not tracking anything out here that's moving. You want the static stuff, and it's not really you know, you want the static stuff, not the moving stuff. So it's not the static camera, it's still a moving camera, really. And it's not a panning camera either. So that's what I chose, and everything turned out great. So, you know, so I drew the masks, and then I went ahead and tracked, got my solve, and then what I did was, instead of exporting like every null, I went through here and I watched very carefully like which blips were like staying put throughout the entire thing, and I exported those, and I was like looking for places that I was anticipating on like putting elements in, like over here on the right, like I was going to put in a firework right around here, and I was going to have, you know, crowds here. I just went ahead and like did that for like every one of these, and then I got a few up here, got a couple down here for safe measures. So just, you know, don't look for the, you know, most stable tracks and export those. That'll save you a lot of time from and pain from having to like deal with shitty tracks in After Effects. So, you know, a little more time spent here looking at these things on the front end of the project will really help you when you're down the road. So I took that tracking down, I exported it. I have a tutorial on how you do all that, but I exported it back here in After Effects. I basically, as you can see all the way down here, I had my nulls on the bottom. I just added I went ahead and rendered out just a 30 frames per second version of that transcode that I did from Final Cut that wasn't contrasty like the footage in Buju. Let me just show you what that looked like. Yeah, this is the footage in its original form. So yeah, I just added that raw 30 frames per second composition there, and I duplicated it, and I just started masking out parts of the crowd on different layers that were still, or that were like together and they were bunched up. And let me go ahead and bring that back up again. Like this isn't at full resolution, but like I went here at the beginning of the clip and like I copied like, you know, this bunch here, or like this bunch here, this bunch here, this bunch down here. And then what I do is I just like go up and like, you know, arrange them in a section, and like basically just take that whole section and then just, you know, transfer it over here, maybe switching them up in the order a little bit. Like if I put like these people on the right over here, I'd put them like on the left over here or something, you know, just to give it a little variation. If there was a guy who stood out from the crowd, like this guy over here, who has like this white shirt and this like sea of red, I'd go to my paintbrush tools right there, and, you know, just paint him red so he didn't stick out as much. And I'll just go ahead and click. As you can see, these have all been time remapped. They're all freeze frames is what they are. Let's see if I play through there. That's just one frame. So you freeze frame the masks that you draw out, and then you hide them behind the still, or the you know, the moving people that are actually still in the scene. Let me uncheck that. But those people that were there are still there. They're just in that mess of pixels. Again, I'm just doing this at quarter resolution so it doesn't take forever. But what I did in Cinema 4D was I found a model of a jet. If you go online, I tried turbosquid.com first, but as you can see here, their selection of free models sucks. Even the low price ones are pretty sucky. So I did find this one by just like typing in free 3D jet in Google, and this website, the free3dmodels.com, came up with this F-18 Hornet jet fighter 3D model. And as you can see here, it looks pretty legit. So I use that as my as the jets that are flying over. You really don't need anything too detailed, since it's going to be just like 1 second and it's going to be just from the bottom, so it's going to be kind of silhouetted. But there's like a million tutorials on how you get this into a track Buju exported Cinema 4D file, so I won't go through that. And I think like I lost that somehow, that composition, so luckily I got it right when I exported it. Oh wait, here it is right here, I think. Well, this is what it's minus the jet, but this is what the track composition looks like. And one thing that I saw on one tutorial the other day, a guy made just a plane and put the material on that. What you really need to do is make a background so you can, like, as you like move the plane in Z space, you can see where it's going to like interact with the masks that you'll be drawing on the elements. Otherwise it'll just like go behind the plane and you really can't see where the shit's going to be. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is to always, like, you know, use a background instead of just making the plane. Just saying. I'm not a total expert at Cinema 4D or anything, but you know, that makes sense to me. I got that file, brought it back in here. I went ahead on that plane. I made a mask. I just animated a mask around the top of the stadium here, so as the planes go behind it, you know, they're hidden by it. I added in some extra fireworks. I have just like an effect video in here where I shoot off some fireworks. I was just kind of messing around, seeing, because like my professor said that he wanted, you know, was talking about me doing this video and adding in fireworks, so I was just seeing like what kind of things I could do to create a fake firework. And so Grayscale Gorilla has this sparkler like preset thing for like trap code, and if you just tweak those settings a little bit, you can get it to where like you'll draw with a motion path function on here. And you can get it to where the trail just kind of decays away as it's going along. I can make a tutorial on how I did the fireworks if you're interested in that. But yeah, I did that for like the trail that goes up. I had some footage of just fireworks going off, and the firework was kept in the middle of the frame. And I just messed with the like screen and add function, or not the function, but the blending mode. the photo blending modes. I just messed with the photo blending modes on those fireworks things, and what I did on them, like, you'd still see a little bit of the like brightness from the pixels in the fireworks footage. So what I did was, if I can find one here, I had a mask around them. It's just a circle mask drawn from like the center of where they explode, and they'd create like boxy looking lines in my footage. I was wondering what the hell's going on. What I did was I created this circle mask, and then just I didn't mess with the mask path as much as I did with the mask expansion. It just expands over time, so it doesn't have that boxy look from just those black pixels that have just a little bit of light in them and the original pieces of footage. And these are reinterpreted at 30 frames per second, so they match up with the composition. Then for these fireworks, I added in lens flares just to give it a little more visual appeal. And it's just like a simple animated lens flare using null light factory. And also down here, adding lens flares to these fireworks that were already in the scene really helped to spruce up the whole visual appeal. If I click off that for a sec, you can see that looks a lot better, I think. And I also did that. I went ahead and I used a mask that I had drawn around this to mask out the crowd behind, and I just copied that footage and then moved it in time to where you have the fireworks shooting off again right after they go off the first time. So it lengthens the fireworks and just makes it more cooler. And I just put lens flares on top of them to give them more appeal, and I used a luma key to separate it from the smoke, so I was just getting like the fireworks going off. What I really should have done if I had to do it again was what I did for the sky was using the colorama effect. It's really a great way to separate dark from black for keying, better than the luma key in my opinion. So yeah, like I was saying, I created these foreground mats by using the roto brush tool and just by going through manually for every frame and the whole composition here, and then drawing masks around these ladies and gentlemen. Then I also down here added flares. Let me see if I can... Yeah, I added flares to the, like, it started sparkling up. The fireworks just kind of transformed to a fountain type of firework, and they just started sparking, so I added flares down here part of the way through the composition. Then for the sky, oh, also this red solid here, I forgot to tell you. You can see these keyframes here, why I animated the opacity. It's set on add, so it looks like when these fireworks are going off, it matches the redness that's being like put off by these fireworks as they burst. That kind of matches how the lights reacting with the rest of the stadium. So, you know, just matching light up in your compositions. And then, as I was saying, for the sky replacement, I used Andrew Kramer's advanced sky replacement tutorial. Like before, I really didn't have any use for it, and I was like, okay, this This is pretty complex and whatnot, but after you get into it, you can really see how powerful it is if you're like really desperate like I was to get this sky looking right. Damn it, where is it? It's all the way down here. But in that video, he basically makes you, you have just like one footage layer where you're applying the colorama effect to, and you create it and you change the output phase cycle to where it's, you're using like a gray ramp or something, and then you mess with these things over here. You add a black point and then you move your white point down here. And it gets rid of all the like brightness in the sky while leaving like these darker areas still pretty much intact. And I went ahead and just like drew a mask around it so it wouldn't, like a garbage mask, so it wouldn't like see anything down here. And yeah, he really does a good job of explaining all of that in his tutorial if you check out his website. I also have these different versions of like sky replacements. I got using a Creative Commons license piece of footage, or not footage, but a photograph from Flickr.com. If you go there and do an advanced search, you can get like stuff you can use for free for commercial projects, which is, you know, what this is. For the last thing that I did was I just added a grain, a basic grain. When you're adding grain, I think the lower numbers, 100T, is for like, it's not as heavy on the grain as these ones up here are. So I added the grain, and it just, what it does is it just kind of blends everything together to give it a nice like look that it was all, you know, shot with one camera. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully this video has kind of helped you out if you're undertaking a similar project and you're experiencing the same problems as I was, or if you're just prepping for a project that's going to be similar to this. I learned a lot, and I definitely look forward to doing some more work like this in the future. So yeah, that's it. My name's klbasey. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, rate and subscribe, and watch my other stuff. See you later.